First of all, do you believe that individually or collectively the pressure to which you were subjected contravened the criminal code?
I don't believe that.
Okay.
Clark, you watched it. Pretty extraordinary testimony. What jumped out for you?
If you are going to write a political thriller, this would be the worst thriller in history, because here you've got her making all of these points, and what at the end of it she says ultimately there were 10 interventions over 4 months and nothing crossed the line into criminality. So okay, you've got a prime minister who's saying, and cabinet who are saying, we want to create jobs in Canada. You've got a minister who's saying, well, I have my legal opinion and I'm standing on my legal opinion, despite the fact that there are other legal opinions out there. And it really, ultimately, this political thriller is just about a battle of egos around the cabinet table.
Well, Tom, that's interesting
Not
because
much to see here, folks.
Well, she did say two things. If the Liberals had any light in this, and there was a lot of darkness, and there's a lot of questions remain, she was asked, do you think it was illegal? She said, not illegal, but inappropriate. And then she also said the system is still working. So does that, as Christy Clark say, undermine at all the seriousness of her allegations?
It gave an argument to the Liberals that they served up Thursday night during the emergency debate. It was one of the first things that the Liberals put on the table. And I think that it, in 3.5 hours of testimony, I guess nobody's going to be perfect, but I think it was one of the rare missteps by Jody Wilson-Raybould, because I think she should have simply abstained from giving a legal opinion in answer to that question, because she was obviously so much at the center of it. It's very similar to the fact that I think that Andrew Scheer personally, because the subject is political interference in criminal prosecutions, I think that he should have held back as well. There have been a series of former attorney generals from different provinces and federally who have now written to the RCMP saying this has to be investigated. That's fine. But to have the sitting leader of the official opposition write that letter to the RCMP about the sitting prime minister, I think that that was a mistake on the part of Andrew Scheer.
Yeah, maybe a tactical mistake. Well, Christy Clark, what did you make of Andrew Scheer, who was just on our program, calling for the resignation already of Justin Trudeau before we even know if there is or may be a criminal investigation?
Well, I agree with what Tom said. I think it's too early for that. And I think that, from a purely political perspective, generally one would want to let and watch this unfold, and then ultimately you get to a point where you call for a resignation. But that's just politics. I would say, though, the issue here is it's awkward for Andrew Scheer and for Jagmeet Singh as the leader of the Loyal Opposition, because what prime minister would not argue for saving 9,000 jobs? I mean, if Andrew Scheer or if Stephen Harper or John Chrétien or Tom Mulcair was prime minister today, would they sit back and say, on a narrow legal point with the opinion of one attorney general, would you say we're going to sacrifice 9,000 jobs in the country? And I don't think any responsible political leader isn't going to try and find a solution when there are that many jobs on the table.
But Tom Mulcair, here's my problem. September 4th, the decision is made. September 17th, the Prime Minister talks to the Attorney General, and she tells him explicitly, don't pressure me. I've made my point. Then for 3.5 more months, they keep trying to flip her. Is that the problem?
What did they do wrong? First of all, they spent 4 months trying to persuade her. I think probably a more forceful decision might have been to say, you know what, thank you very much for your service. We'd like you to serve in another ministry. That's what a lot of leaders who wanted to save 9,000 jobs in the country might have done.
Your former Director of Communications, Ben Shin, who's now the Chief of Staff for the Finance Minister, he was named as someone who put inappropriate pressure on a member of Jody Wilson-Raybould's staff. What is your take on when is it appropriate to talk to the Minister of Justice or the Attorney General? They're double-hatted in the federal system, as you know. When is it appropriate to keep talking about a situation or a decision that she's already made?
Well, I would say it's always appropriate to try and fight for jobs and to save jobs. And so here's the level of kind of silliness that this has gotten to. Complaints about staff talking to staff. That happens all the time. And what the former minister said is, well, you know, I had 10 interventions after over 4 months. Well, that's not that many. But to Tom's point, the higher the horse that you're riding on, the farther the fall is. But I have never seen a Commons Committee convened to discuss whether or not the level of sanctimony of their political opponents was too high.
Okay, I got a minute here, but just Christy Clark, let me just stay with you. Are you saying you don't buy Jody Wilson-Raybould's story? You just don't think that, though she says she felt pressured, you just think this is overblown?
Oh, I think, yeah. I mean, and I think that the point has been lost here, which is, yes, there is an argument. You know, she made up her mind. She does not serve in cabinet because of her constituents' wishes or because of her caucus's wishes. She serves in cabinet at the wish of the Prime Minister, who has the ultimate decision and responsibility for the whole country. He can move her anytime. I think what we got into here was a battle of wills between the PMO and between the minister. And ultimately in those battles, the Prime Minister or the First Minister's office necessarily wins, because it is the first ministers of this country who carry with them the responsibility to look after the broader public interest.
BC Liberal MP Jody Wilson-Raybould's future. I mean, you've criticized her behavior in the SNC file in the past, but is her crime against the Team Liberal severe enough to warrant being bounced from caucus, in your view?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, every caucus is different. They'll have to make that decision. She certainly seems to want to... it's starting to look a little like revenge. She certainly seems to want to get her piece of, whatever it is, from the Liberal Party and from the Prime Minister. They'll have to make the decision about that. But, you know, back to my thing, Don, and I've said this to you before, I just think in a country where jobs are at risk, because we're moving likely into a recessionary period where we need to be protecting every job that we can, I think it's the job of every elected political official, from New Democrats to Liberals to Conservatives, to fight to protect jobs. And I think in this SNC-Lavalin thing, what we're seeing is a battle between people who care more about the process and people who care more about the outcome. And I'm an outcomes person, I'm a jobs person, and I think that there was a far better way to resolve this than seeing these personal animosities kind of out there in public view the way that we have.
All right.
Is that clear enough for you?
Nice to get your view on everything, Christy Clark. Yeah, that's clear enough. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Right.
Nice to talk.
Thank you, Christy.